Welcome, Mikko. Welcome back. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much.
Hit it.
And thanks to all of you for being here with us this morning to talk about, well, the future of security. So, yes, my name is Mikko. Yes, I am a Finn. I am a hacker who hunts hackers. And what I mean by that is that I hunt the evil hackers, the bad hackers, the criminals, the ones who write the malware, who break our systems, who breach our security, who run the botnets, who create the Trojans. Guys who look something like this. So here's 3 examples, real-world examples of the kind of people we are trying to fight. And I strongly believe that we have no hope in trying to solve these problems if we don't understand who we are fighting. We have to understand who we are fighting. We have to understand why they are doing what they're doing. What are their motives? If we don't understand their motives, we have no hope in trying to defend against them because they are totally different attackers, attacking different targets. So it's not like we have this one general hacker who's trying to attack all targets. Different kinds of organizations are targeted by different kinds of attackers who have different motives, which means you have different ways of fighting them. So here behind me we have Mr. Denis Kolevskis, the brains behind the Gozi Trojan or the Gozi botnet, which was making money in various different ways, including key locking, stealing credit card information, and so on. In center, Viljar Kivi. He's Estonian, or actually he has both Estonian and Finnish citizenships. He's been running a range of different scams, mostly trying to masquerade as official authorities like the taxman or the mail, and then try to steal people's identities by phishing. And then Yevgeny Bogachev, the brains behind the Zeus botnet or Zeus banking Trojan. And Denis and Viljar are both caught. They're both in jail right now. Yevgeny, he's still on the loose. You can actually find him from several different wanted lists, including the wanted lists of both Interpol and Europol, where he is wanted for computer crimes and I suppose also for crimes against fashion. It's a question of taste. Well, I think it's pretty universally bad taste to wear something like that. So, the mega trends that really feed the current problems that we're seeing are interesting. Criminals try to make money. That's pretty much what they try to do. The biggest motive of online attackers is money. On a typical day, our labs at F-Secure receive 350 to 400,000 samples to be analyzed. We estimate that over 95% of those samples are coming from organized online crime. So the rest of it, just 5%, is them coming from nation states or APT attacks, foreign intelligence agencies, or from hacktivists or anonymous or anything else, or even extremists or terrorists. So 95% are criminals. And criminals try to make money. One big headache online crime or online criminals always had was how to actually move the money without getting caught. It's fairly easy to steal credit card numbers. It's fairly easy to gain access to bank accounts. It's fairly easy to move the money electronically. But how do you actually get it out? How do you get it as cash in your hand without getting caught? And the mechanisms online criminals were trying to use were different money laundering mechanisms or money mules. And this was always complicated and also very costly for the criminals. Big part of their income was lost in running money mule operations and paying part of the profits to people who were laundering the money. So that's why it's been such a big shift over the last 5 years to see Bitcoin enter this space. Now, Bitcoin isn't bad. Bitcoin is a tool. Just like real-world money isn't good or bad, cash is a tool. But in the real world criminals prefer cash because it's anonymous. And exactly in the same way, online criminals prefer Bitcoin because it's anonymous. In the real world, it's kind of hard to buy cocaine with a credit card or so I've been told. Just for the same reasons. In the online world, you want to buy drugs, you pay with Bitcoin. And of course, online criminals prefer Bitcoin because it gives them anonymity. It also opens up very interesting new research possibilities for the good guys, because Bitcoin is based on blockchain, and blockchain is a public ledger of transactions. And when I say public, I mean public. I mean, every single one of us can go today and download the whole Bitcoin blockchain, which has every single Bitcoin action since 2009 when it was created. So you can see every single money transaction. You don't see who is sending money to who, but you see the transactions. And that means that we can watch criminals moving money. We don't know who they are, but we see how much money they're making. And that's fairly interesting. Now, one of the things that I've learned over the 25 years that I've been reverse engineering malware and analyzing online attacks is that we can divide all the security problems into two different groups. We have the technical problems, vulnerabilities in our systems, and then we have the people. Technical problems we fix by fixing the bugs, because that's what vulnerabilities are. Vulnerabilities are bugs. That's easy enough. But we can't patch people. There is no way to fix people's brains, because people keep making mistakes. They always click on the wrong link. They always double click on every attachment. They will always type their password to every single field that asks for it. And then they will use the same password for every single service. And the password will always be bad. And if you don't trust me on that, maybe you will trust the President of the United States.
And more companies are moving to new, stronger technologies to authenticate user identities, like biometrics, because it's just too easy for hackers to figure out user names and passwords like password or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Those are some of my previous passwords. I've changed them since then.
And users will always be making stupid stuff. Stupid stuff like taking photos of their brand new credit card and then posting the photo on Twitter. And then, when somebody asks her that, hey, that's a nice card, what's the number on the other side? She replies, I quit. And of course, the users will always be taking the USB stick they found from outside of their office and plug it into their work laptop. And no matter what you tell them will change that. Or maybe it will. I'll actually give you a way of convincing your users to not plug unknown USB sticks into their devices. The problem people think that these devices will cause them is that, there might be malware. There might be an auto-run worm on the stick. Or maybe there's, a document which has double extension and they click on it and it's actually an executable and they will get infected. Well, yes, that does happen. So the users might think they're really clever and they run it they open it up in Ubuntu session or maybe, in a virtual machine. Well, that might not help because there are different kinds of USB sticks. My favorite one are the USB stick systems called USB Kill. Because what USB Kill does is that it looks like this, but what it actually does is it will collect power from the port and then turn the power back against the port. So it uses the USB power line, which is 5 volts, until it gets 240 volts, and then it charges it back to the port. What does that look like? Well, it looks like this. You put it in, and it's dead. And it will no longer boot up. It just died. That's USB Kill. And of course, it doesn't have to look like a USB stick. You can take this technology and embed it into, a mouse, or embed it into, a USB hub, or a webcam, or my favorite, which happens to me all the time, because I'm regularly going into conferences, and I always like to use my own laptop. which means that there's some stage help guy who comes to me with his clicker. And sometimes I almost have to fight them because they want to plug their clicker into my laptop. And I don't want them to plug their clicker into my laptop. I really don't. This is my own clicker. I prefer my own clicker. And USBs are, of course, everywhere. I just saw this picture of how music is now being sold in Mexico City. This is how you buy it from the street. Different types of music. Classic rock, Michael Jackson, 70s and 80s. Actually, 70s and 80s is sold out. Another thing that we are hearing a lot of talk about is the IoT revolution. The revolution of IoT and ICS. Internet of Things and industrial control systems. And this revolution is underway. It's happening. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. And the IoT revolution will happen whether we are part of the revolution or not. And what I mean by that is that all the devices, all the appliances in our homes will eventually be online. And they might not be online to benefit us, the consumers. They might be online to benefit the manufacturers. Let me explain this. If you go and buy a brand new washing machine, you will see that many of the models they're selling today will be IoT washing machines, where you can actually choose the program from your phone, and it will tell you on your phone when the washing machine is done, and you can go and hang your laundry. Those features benefit you, the consumer. That's nice. But then there will be devices which will have no benefits for you. Let's say you go and buy a toaster in, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It's likely that that toaster will be an IoT toaster, but there's no IoT features. It doesn't send you a message that your toast is done, because you don't really need a message on your phone that your toast is done, right? But it might still be online. Why? To send analytics to the manufacturer, to send usage information, to send information on failures of the machine, to send information like that on the west side of Stockholm we have more customers than on the east side of Stockholm, so maybe we should advertise our toasters more on the east side of Stockholm. Or how often do the people use the machines, what kind of toast they're toasting, and how often do their toasters catch fire, things like that. And the reason why this will happen is that it's going to be so cheap to add one chip into the toaster to get it online, that the benefits will be bigger than the cost. So it's going to happen. IoT revolution will happen whether we will be part of the revolution or not. Now, if we take a step back and think about internet and how internet has changed our lives, well, we are here in a security event, so we're speaking about the bad things the internet has brought us. And clearly, internet has brought us new risks. Clearly, internet has exposed us to criminals that we were not exposed to before. However, I think we would all agree that internet has brought us more good things than bad things. I mean, I love the internet. Think about all the connectivity it has brought us, all the business, all the entertainment. It's the biggest thing that has happened during our generation. Yes, it has brought us bad stuff, but it has brought us so much more good stuff that the bad stuff pales in comparison. And I'd like to think, in fact, I'd like to hope that the same thing will apply to Internet of Things as well. We don't know that yet, but we can hope it's going to be the same thing. We can hope that when we'll be here in Next Generation Threats 2026, in 10 years from now, then we can look back into the history of IoT and see that, yes, IoT brought us lots of new risks, but it brought us more good things than bad things. Right now, when I'm looking at what we have online, I'm seeing more bad things, because there are so many devices being brought online with poor authentication, poor security features. Because traditional legacy manufacturers of home appliances might have great experience in safety, but they know nothing about security. And security is not a selling point for home appliances. So the manufacturers invest the bare minimum in the security features. And then we have the problem of users not understanding what the risk here is. I mean, the users are thinking that, okay, my fridge and my washing machine will be online. And they probably can be hacked, But I don't care because it's a fridge. It's a goddamn fridge. I don't care. It's a washing machine. I don't care. It's a toaster. I don't care if somebody hacks my toaster, right? That's not the point. IoT devices are not a target for the hackers. They are a vector for the hackers or the attackers, vector for the criminals. The IoT devices in our networks will be the weakest link of the network. They will be the way in. And we already see this. We found this light bulb which had a remote vulnerability which let the attackers into the network. So the light bulb is the weakest part of your network. And this is not just a home problem. Imagine a scenario where one of your employees brings an IoT coffee machine to the office to make coffee and plugs it into your corporate network. And then it's going to leak your corporate Wi-Fi password. IoT devices are not a target for the attackers. They are a vector for the attackers. And the IoT problems that we see today are very concrete. Last week, we saw the largest denial of service attack in history. Single largest attack ever, targeting Brian Krebs from Krebs on Security, his website. His website was taken down by the largest denial of service attack in history. And that attack was done with a botnet built of IoT devices. So we're already seeing this happening. Another thing which has been in the headlines a lot for the last 2 years is car hacking. Cars getting hacked. You know, Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek or some other good hackers finding vulnerabilities from cars. And as soon as you start speaking about hacking cars, people get scared for a good reason, because the immediate thought in their head is that, oh my God, an evil hacker will hack my car while I'm driving down the freeway. And that evil hacker will disable my brakes and floor the gas and disable steering. He's going to drive me off a cliff. He's going to kill me. That's the thing people think about. And that is not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Why? Because in general, hackers are not interested in killing people. It's also illegal to kill people. You can trust me on this. I checked it. We have to think through the motives. Like I said in the beginning, think through the motives. Like, why would they do it? What are they going to benefit from hacking cars? So what we will be seeing are things like what we see in this security camera footage, where a Jeep is being stolen by a car thief. And when he gets into the car, he doesn't start hot wiring the wires. He takes out a MacBook. Instead of starting to hot wire it, he takes out a MacBook and connects the MacBook with a USB cable to the ODB channel of the car and starts hacking away. After 4 minutes, the alarm goes off. After 2 more minutes, the car starts and he drives away. This is what car hacking looks like. This is how they benefit from car hacking, not by killing random people, but by stealing cars. Stealing cars without breaking windows or breaking the car, keeping up the resale value. And car thieves and car theft is already a problem. Car thieves would much rather steal cars like this. And then, of course, in addition of all these criminal gangs, we have to worry about governments. There's a very good reason why militaries are interested in cyber arms if you will. They're interested in them because offensive cyber weapons are effective, affordable, and deniable. Effective, affordable, deniable. They work. They're cheaper than launching B-52 bombing runs. And then they can be denied. No, we didn't do that. No, that must have been someone else. That's a great combination in a weapon. That's why we're seeing more and more action. However, most of the action done by governments is not coming from militaries. It is coming from intelligence agencies. It's all about spying. Spying and doing intelligence gathering. And also shaping people's opinions. And I believe this is what's behind the attacks that we've seen lately coming from Russia, targeting different targets related to the US presidential elections. I don't believe that Russian government is trying to get Trump elected. I do believe they want to sow mistrust into the US society and make America weaker as a whole. I think the end game is that after the next president has been elected, whoever it might be, the losing party will believe that somehow the vote was rigged, that somehow the winning candidate did it wrongly, or there was something done with hacking or computers or something to make the society weaker as a whole. Because that's what Russia wants to do, make their enemies weaker. So does this all mean that we are now living in cyber war? Well, no, it doesn't. We just got out of the last arms race. We spent 60 years in the nuclear arms race. 60 years. And as soon as we got rid of the daily fear of annihilation and end of the world from nuclear war, we entered the next arms race, which is the cyber arms race. And we might very well spend the next 60 years in cyber arms race. But most of the things that are labeled as cyber war are not war. So, for example, you might have heard about the attacks against the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, which is probably better known with the abbreviation SWIFT. And this attack, which consisted of 5 different heists, targeting 5 different large banks in different parts of the world, actually very, very international attacks all over the world. The attacker tried to steal $1 billion, over $1 billion in these attacks. The attacker managed to steal a little over 100 million. But nevertheless, the amount is huge. So where did the money go? Well, it went here. Or at least part of it went to this casino in the Philippines, where it was converted into poker chips and used to play poker on a high roller table and lost on purpose. So the chips were moved from the loser to the winner, who was part of the whole scheme. And this was how they laundered the money. So who was behind this? Well, we don't know, but there's one piece of evidence which is interesting, which is that in one of these attacks, the attackers were encrypting the communication between the victim bank and the attacker's command and control servers with an encryption key, this key. And we have actually seen this key before. We've seen it once before. We saw it in December 2014. We saw the same key used in an attack which was targeting a movie studio. This same key was used in the attack against Sony Pictures. And US government has told us all that the Sony Pictures attack was done by North Korea. When pushed on how on earth could they know, eventually we learned that the answer was that they knew because the American intelligence had breached the security of North Koreans and they were watching them do it. So suddenly the story changes from that these goddamn North Koreans are hacking companies here in USA to these goddamn North Koreans are hacking companies here in USA and we know because we hacked them. But if indeed this link proves that the SWIFT heists were coming from the government of North Korea, this is the first in history. It's the first time we've seen government do attacks not for sabotage, not for spying, not for military purposes, but for stealing money. Now remember, they tried stealing $1 billion. I actually went to Wikipedia to check what is the national budget of North Korea. The annual national budget of North Korea is $4 billion. They tried to steal $1 billion. So if this is North Korea trying to fix their budget deficit by stealing, or if it's something else, we don't know. But it's very interesting. But clearly this isn't war. This is stealing. So are there any cases that we should define as cyber war attacks? Well, yes, there is. The best example is the attack last Christmas Eve's Eve, targeting the company Prukarbatooblenergo, which is a company in Kyiv, Ukraine, which is in charge of the long-distance electricity grid of central and southern Ukraine. where the attack was targeting the operators of the network, of the electricity grid. And the attack, which started on the 23rd of December last year, started by one of the operators who was sitting on his workstation controlling relays and backup power, realized that his mouse doesn't work. This is how it starts. One operator realizes that his mouse doesn't work. He turns to the operator next to him, telling that, hey, funny, my mouse doesn't work. And the operator next to him says, yeah, my mouse doesn't work either. My keyboard doesn't work either. But it's weird. I can still see the cursor moving on the screen. And this is a bad sign. So they were watching this unknown shadow operator control their critical infrastructure workstations and watched as the shadow operator started turning off backup power in different parts of the grid, then start clicking on the relays, turning off power in different parts of the country, until they saw the operator turn off the backup power from the building where they were in themselves, and then shut down power, leaving the operators themselves in the dark. This happened last December. And the attack came from Russia. And Russia and Ukraine are at war. Well, of course, the Russians don't call it a war. But when you take a piece of land from another country by force, I call it a war. And when you turn off power from 200,000 people in the middle of the winter in Ukraine, it is serious. I actually went and checked the historical weather in central Ukraine for the 23rd of December. It wasn't too bad. It was -2 Celsius. But bad enough. Well, the power did not stay off for very long. It was actually recovered for most of the affected users on the same day. But the operators could not recover it with their own computers because the attackers had actually overwritten the firmware on the serial to Ethernet converters that they were using to run the relays. So they had turned those devices into bricks. They had to be physically replaced. Which means that to get the power back, the operators had to physically go to the relays and turn the power back on manually by controlling the relays with people. But they did get the power back. And I have a hard time describing this as anything else than an attack in a cyber war or a cyber war attack. Because we have two countries at war here. One of the countries is launching an attack which affects critical infrastructure. So this is where we are today. Of course, it's not just the Russians doing this. We have seen and have evidence of nation states launching attacks against other governments, from the Russians, from the North Koreans, from Iran, from the United States, from France, from Germany, from China. This is the world where we live in now. And I would have never believed this. Back then, 25 years ago, when analyzing viruses meant analyzing something on these, if somebody would have come to me as I was analyzing viruses, boot sector viruses on floppy disks 25 years ago, and told me that by 2016 it's going to be the norm that militaries and intelligence agencies write malware and use them to launch attacks against other countries, I would not have believed that. That would have sounded like science fiction. But it's not science fiction. This is the world where we are. And it affects all of us. Why? Because today, all companies are software companies. Every single company. Obviously, everybody in the tech field clearly is a software company. But you go, let's say, car companies, which we have here in Sweden. I think we have one left here in Sweden. Designing cars, testing them, is all done with computers and software. The cars themselves are basically data centers on 4 wheels. Or you go to any factory. Everything is being controlled by PLCs and ICS gear. You go to any restaurant, and everything they do is being controlled and managed with computers and software. All companies today are software companies. So if you want to be able to provide security also in the future, we have to think big. We have to think beyond the obvious solutions. And we have to think about resilience. If your network is big enough, you have to assume that you are always breached, that there's always a breach in some part of your network. As the saying goes, how many of the Fortune 500 companies are hacked right now? Answer, 500. Every single one of them. Why? Because every single Fortune 500 company has a global massive network of tens of thousands of workstations, which means there's always a breach somewhere. So instead of trying to keep all the attackers out all the time, which we cannot do, we have to focus on detecting them when they get in and building in resilience to be able to continue to work even though there is a breach. And that, my friends, is the future of security. Thank you very much. Thank you.